Hi everybody. In this unit, you'll be learning about some of the riparian plants that occur along our local rivers and creeks. Don't be alarmed by the number of plant names that you may not recognize in this lecture. This unit also includes a plant walk at the heart of Soquel Park next to Soquel Creek, where you'll see many of the plants I'm going to mention and you'll learn how to recognize them. The well-developed soils and year-round moisture along many of our county waterways help create unique habitat for plants and, of course, for the wildlife they support. By the end of this unit, you'll be able to describe the vegetation profile of the riparian corridor, and after the field trip, you'll also be able to identify the main plants of the local riparian woodland plant community. In the next 4 slides, you'll learn about the vegetation profile of a riparian waterway. Remember, though, that no 2 waterways are identical, and that the diagram you can see in this slide here is a stylized profile. Not all waterways are going to have all of the elements that are in this diagram. So let's start at the water's edge, right here, and then we'll work our way outwards from the water. Along the water's edge, there's often a relatively bare strip that's scoured clean by the flow of water. There may be a few herbaceous plants in this area, though, such as some species of sedges that have foliage that's pliable enough to bend but not break with a strong flow of water in winter, and whose roots tolerate inundation for relatively long periods of time. Slightly further up the bank in this zone, there may be some species of juncus, which are rushes, and perhaps some grass species too. There may also be some ferns, such as giant chain fern, and annual flowering plants, such as seep monkeyflower and its close relative, the scarlet monkeyflower. The next zone up is dominated by shrubs or small trees, such as willows, young black cottonwoods, and red-stem dogwood that you can see here in bloom. The roots and lower branches of the woody plants in this zone trap sediment that's being washed downstream. Over time, as the sediment accumulates on the bank, a natural levee may be created. A levee is a ridge or embankment that runs parallel to the waterway and helps to provide flood protection. Many waterways have constructed levees that are intended to improve flood protection for perhaps agricultural fields or, more commonly, for urban areas. A local example is the levee along the Pajaro River that you can see from Highway 1 between the Riverside and Salinas Road exits, which is intended to protect the downtown area of Watsonville from flooding. Next, we come to the riparian forest or riparian woodland zone. This zone consists of tall trees such as larger black cottonwoods, alder, and western sycamore that you can see here on the right with its large palmate leaves and interesting pendant chains of hard casings of seeds that appear in the fall. In Santa Cruz County, the dominant tree canopy in this zone changes with elevation from winter deciduous trees along the lower reaches of our rivers to mixed evergreen, in which coast redwood and Douglas fir become the dominant tree species. Under the larger trees of the riparian woodland zone are layers of smaller trees, such as box elder and bigleaf maple. These two could be confused when you see them because they both have simple palmate leaves, but we'll make sure that we look at them both on our plant walk, and you'll learn about the differences between the two of them, and also between western sycamore and these two trees. Western sycamore also has simple palmate leaves. In the understory, you'll probably also find a range of shrubs that grow in other woodland and forest plant communities, some of which we've already seen. They include coyote brush, California rose, blackberry, the ubiquitous poison oak, snowberry, blue elderberry, coffeeberry, and pink flowering currant. You may also find bracken fern Pteridium aquilinum, which is a common fern found in several plant communities that spreads by rhizomes. So combined, these different vegetation zones of the riparian corridor create a complex, layered architecture which provides a wealth of habitat for wildlife, especially for birds. In a separate unit, we'll talk about how we can use this as inspiration for wildlife-friendly cultivated landscapes. The impact of the vegetation cover along the riparian corridor isn't limited just to terrestrial wildlife, though. It also has an impact on aquatic life. Water temperatures can rise dramatically in the dry summer months, presenting a threat to the survival of fish and amphibians, such as this steelhead salmon and the foothill yellow-legged frog. The overhanging branches of trees in the riparian zone shade the water, keeping it cooler in summer and moderating the water temperature for the eggs of fish and amphibian species and their young when the eggs hatch. For those of you who'd like to learn more about the impact of riparian vegetation on aquatic life in our local waterways, there's a copy in Canvas of the 2004 update on the management plan for Soquel Creek Lagoon, which contains some really interesting information about the management of the riparian zone along the lower stretches of Soquel Creek, and also some really fascinating local history about Capitola and historic uses of the lagoon at the mouth of Soquel Creek. So that's the end of this video lecture. Now return to Canvas and continue with this module on riparian ecosystems.